Good morning, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, reporting live from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law in East Texas. And we have authors from around the country. And I'm going to first introduce the author that brought this new Writers Book Club into fruition. His name is Robert Gwaltney, and he has written a wonderful book that's not out yet, but will be a 2022 Pulpwood Queen official book club selection, The Cicada Tree. It's a novel. It's absolutely one of my favorite genres because it's very Southern Gothic, which is why I moved to Texas, because I just love everything in the South. I think some of the best storytellers are from the South. And if you look at the world of the world of the United States' most favorite beloved stories, they're usually Southern. Gone with the Wind, To Kill a Mockingbird. You know, I'm always thinking of Tennessee Williams and Eudora Welty and Ellen Gilchrist and Mark Childress and Pat Conroy. I am in love with this voice, though we read books from around the world. So today, I'm going to kick it off with Robert in his home in Atlanta, Georgia, and he's going to introduce himself and tell about the group that we have here today.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for having us on. It's really exciting to have the group here together. We've been writing together. Well, Jeff and I have been writing together for over 10 years. Mickey and Marissa come onto the group within the last 3 to 4 years. But I guess I can start, Kathy, with our introductions. First of all, we all reside here in Atlanta, Georgia. Of course, you know, during the pandemic, we've only been able to meet via Zoom. But I'll start with Jeff Blocker, who really is sort of responsible for the assembling of our group. He is our facilitator. He is a dear friend of mine. He's an amazing writer. He's extremely prolific. He can write screenplays, short stories, novels, and we're all really excited about a novel that he's working on right now entitled Cherry Blossom, which is in revision. And we all have high hopes that this is probably going to be his debut novel. We have Mr. Mickey Dubrow, who also, as I stated earlier, lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and he comes from a television background. I think right now he's working in a freelance capacity. Mickey, I hope I get your resume correct. CNN, Cartoon Network, your amazing novel, American Judas, came out in October 2018, and it's really a wonderful work of speculative fiction. There's right there. And of course, I want all of them to be able to chime in and talk a little bit about themselves as well. We have the lovely Miss Marissa McNamara, who is the poet in our group. She's an associate professor at Georgia State University, a prolific writer. She has been published in a variety of publications. Most recently, Mother Mary Comes to Me, a pop culture anthology. Marissa, do you have, there you go.
There it is.
And she's got a really lovely piece that's going to be published in Deep South magazine coming up pretty soon, right, Marissa?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is our wonderful group. The Cicada Tree probably would have never happened if I had not had the support of these wonderful individuals.
Wonderful. You know, to kick off our writers group, I thought it was very important and would be a little bit less intimidating if I had authors on that didn't have books published and did have books published, so that the beginning writer that's coming on board to this would feel at home. But at the same time, I've never been in a writer's critique group. I've always wanted to be in one, and I'm fascinated by the process. So this is, you guys meet how many times a month?
Jeff, you want to talk a little bit about the intricacies of our process and submission?
Sure. What we found that worked for us, and I started 3 other writers groups before this one, sort of became what I needed it to be, and I guess the rest of the group needed it to be. We started meeting monthly. We would submit our work about a week ahead of time to allow people time to read it and critique it. Then we would meet in person in my living room, and we would just discuss what we liked about the piece, anything that confused us or seemed unrealistic, or anything we had questions about that took us out of the reading process of the novel. And then we would give that feedback to each other, and then we'd meet another month. Eventually, I decided that if we really wanted to make progress, we needed to meet more often. So I asked people if they would be willing to meet every 3 weeks or preferably 2 weeks. And we've been doing that for a number of years now. And I think that's what actually has enabled us to really make progress more quickly. Because, if you have a 25 chapter novel and you're only meeting once a month, it's going to take over 2 years to get through. If you're meeting every 2 weeks, you can do that in a year and then start revision.
These are all important things to know, because I think it's really helpful when you have feedback from other authors, because I have interviewed hundreds and hundreds of authors in my 21 years now of doing the Pulpwood Queens. And one of the things I've found is that a lot of the authors, who did not have, were not in readers groups, were always surprised by some of the questions that people would ask, where they'd say, well, why did that character do that? And they go, I don't know. It just came to me. I have no idea. I always think that's fascinating. So if you had somebody that you were, sharing it with or getting feedback from, you could get some, and I want to say helpful criticism, because I am of the belief that there is no point in putting out a bad review on anybody, because as an author myself, knowing how long it takes to put a book together, that is just like the worst thing you could do to somebody who's put their heart and soul, no matter whether you like the story or not. All stories connect with somebody. They do. Even the poorly written ones, somebody say, oh, that happened to me. So that's very interesting. What is the best thing, maybe somebody else could jump in, a best thing that you've seen happen with your writers critique group that has been helpful in your writing? Can you think of one or a couple things?
I've seen my writing improve vastly from being in the group, because they were able to point out things that weren't working. Like if someone read something and said, well, you lost me. I was following the plot, but now I don't know what's going on. And you go, well, if they lost it, then the reader's going to lose it. So right away, you're looking for how can I fix that? How can I repair what I missed? And so no, it has improved my writing immensely from being in the group.
It's really great. And I don't know all of your backgrounds on writing, but my major in college was not English or creative writing. My major was art and geology. So when I was asked by a publisher to write the story of I go, oh, you want me to write my story about what happened the first year I was open? Because the first year Beauty in the Book, which was my hair salon bookstore, open, I got featured on Good Morning America, the Oprah Winfrey Show, Newsweek, Time, Wall Street Journal. It was just insane. And it's kind of been an up and down roller coaster ride ever since. I had no idea this would happen. And I feel like sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time, or you do something so different, people are wanting to know what that's all about. So now I know, let's see, Jeff, is yours the one that's published, or Mickey, your book? Mickey, your book, when it came out before COVID. So how was that for you? I mean, having the support team has got to be amazing, but how was that for you when you put your book out there? Did you find having a hard time getting it publicized or marketed, or was it accepted very well? I just heard about it from Robert. I'm dying to read it. I love it. I love the title. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was with a micro publisher. It took a long time to find a publisher because it is a challenging subject. And but the launch was great, and it was really great to have the writing group there. And I'm really looking forward. I'm hoping that Robert will have a live, because I would love to be there when he launches his book, and we can sit in the back and laugh at him like they laughed at me. No, they didn't laugh.
We're going to launch it all right. We're going to launch it big time, aren't we, Mandy and Claire? We're going to really launch it. I try to do that for all my authors that request a book launch. It's something that is so important, because now with COVID, Everybody has been coming to me, help me, I can't get my book. And I know myself, I just came out with a book this year. It was anthology of almost 70 of my Pulpwood Queen stories. And I have not sold one book in 2 quarters, not one book. And I'm sad for myself, but I'm even sadder for my authors because these stories are amazing. And I thought it would keep the authors in the limelight until their next books came out. So I'm trying to figure out ways to get that. The Pulpwood Queen celebrates 20 years and Claire Fullerton's in there. It's just absolutely a wonderful book. So, but that's interesting. And your book launch was there in Atlanta?
It was. I did it through Acapella Books, and he has an event space where he does a lot of book launches.
That's fabulous. I'm trying to think if when I was on tour, if I did Atlanta. I know I went to the Gone with the Wind Museum with my author friend Jenny Hilderman, and I went to the Jimmy Carter Presidential Library because 2 of my authors were presenting there. But Atlanta is a fun place to go, y'all. I love it. And I have lots of author friends there too. So, but the wonderful thing about once you join the Pulpwood Queen and Timber Guy international community is we are here to promote you forever. So get me your books, and it's all up on my website. Okay, Marissa, let's hear a little bit about you, your poetry. And I love poetry. I've really rediscovered it in this last 5 years of my life. And some of my favorite poets, I don't know if you know Ron Rash, but I was really lucky to introduce Billy Martin and met many of the Texas, poet laureates. And I've got Joy Harjo's new books on our reading list. So tell us about your books.
Well, my publications so far have been single publications in different journals like Rattle, Amsterdam Quarterly, the Cortland Review, that sort of thing. And then South is the next one. So I just kind of randomly send them out there to journals that I think they fit into and that I enjoy. And I've written poetry since my early 30s. I'm not going to tell you how long ago that was. And it's just, I think it's more changed over time, and these guys have really helped me with that and really helped me look at, like what they can see a thread in my work that I didn't see, right? I mean, from an outside perspective, they did. I also do readings around town. I did have a book completed that I was submitting or starting to submit, and my computer got stolen. And so that's gone. And
now repeat that again, because it kind of froze out there a little bit.
Sure. So I had a completed book. It was a book of narrative poetry. So it was a story from beginning to end. But my computer got stolen, my house got broken into, and so now that's gone, at least the final draft of it. And that was a year ago. So I am still trying to get back to it. I'm hoping in the next month, I'm kind of feeling like I'm getting closer to it, but that was just so disheartening that I haven't been able to get back to it. But I am writing other things. I am
Marissa,
writing, when I go back to it, it'll be even better.
Marissa, are you comfortable sharing sort of what your memoir work is about? It's lovely.
No, yeah. So my first husband passed away 16 years ago now. So he was 42. And it's, basically the story of going through that from a poetry perspective. And so it starts with him getting sick. And I'd probably say maybe that's the first half. And then the second half really is sort of my journey in healing. So I think there's a pretty good thread. What I really like to do with it, although because I'm not like a published big author, I probably won't be able to do it, as I have a lot of artifacts. Like I have his journals, I have x-rays, I have scans, I have doctor's notes, and I would love to do some sort of volume with all those pieces in there, but it's hard enough to get poetry published, right? Like not many people pick up a book of poetry off the shelf. So, it's a dream, but it would be really cool to put it together.
It would be an awesome thing to put together for a book talk or gallery show.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
because I know that I had an author who spent a year in the Peace Corps.
Okay.
And she wrote a book about her experience, but she said she couldn't really just put the story into words, so she interjected poetry into her story. So
Yeah.
then when she went around, she would, talk about her book, and then she'd read the poetry. It was beautiful. I think you are onto a really great idea, because that is something that's not been done. Those are the
Right.
things that I get really excited about. So you work that all together, and we'll talk, Marissa, because I would
Okay.
love to see that. And I've got something coming up that might be perfect to showcase that with. So
Oh, okay.
let's keep the conversation going.
I would love
And
that.
Robert, how about for you? I mean, these people are all very important in your life. It's just in our conversations alone, the love and friendship that you share with all of them is transparent. I mean, um, I think it's important to have your own posse, because when I went on book tour, I took 5 of my book club members with me for a month and a half. And my publisher, which was Grand Central Publishing, rented me this giant Suburban. So 27 pieces of luggage and boxes of books. We headed out for a 10-state, 27-stop tour. And I could write a whole book just about that. So have you ever thought about, maybe doing a podcast or something about this wonderful relationship because it's really, reading is storytelling, and it's about community, and the community that you've built amongst yourselves is so important. You should document it in
Well,
some way.
Jeff Blocker has pitched that to us, and I think that he would be an awesome facilitator of such a project. Jeff, I know that we had sort of a roundtable a year or so ago talking about that. You sort of want to talk a little bit about what you were thinking?
Sure. I actually just thinking about, well, I'm very interested in the creative process and where people get stuck and how to support them and move past their obstacles. And in doing that, last year, I went through Martha Beck's Wayfinder life coaching course because I wanted to help other people do that more. And my thought was that by having the writing group maybe do a monthly podcast, we could discuss different aspects of our writing process, talk about times in which we have gotten stuck, how we got around that, how we've supported each other or one another as a group when those moments have come. For example, the past year, Marissa has struggled somewhat with writing because she's basically been grieving the loss of that final manuscript. And there are times where the logical part of yourself knows you need to keep going, but then there's that essential inner part of yourself, the emotional part of yourself that needs time to grieve that loss. And you've got to balance those. And I think basically, in a nutshell, having a writing group, you're entering a tribe to where you're with like-minded souls who can really help you integrate all those parts of yourself that seem scattered, and in that integration help you move forward and make your work holistic to where you can finally put it out there and allow other people to integrate that story into their own lives for their own healing and entertainment.
Isn't he
I
good?
would think that would be a great idea. Great idea. A podcast would be amazing. But Marissa,
Excuse
I
me.
want to tell you,
He needs to write an article with what he just said, because I can't even believe how articulate you are. Fluid, gorgeous, beautiful, well done. Please write that. Please send it
Absolutely.
anywhere and let us know when it's published.
I'm serious. This is
Yeah.
amazing. But I was going to tell Marissa, what happened to you is just every night author's nightmare. But I want to tell you a story. There's a wonderful book by Jim Trelease called Read All About It. And it's the story behind the story of all the most famous, beloved stories in the world. Everybody from Beatrix Potter's, but the one story that stuck in my mind was the guy who wrote Where the Red Fern Grows. He was illiterate. He could barely read and write, but he had the story. And so he scratched it down. And he had a trunk of these stories. And then he fell in love with a school teacher who was brilliant. And he was trying to hide from her that he was illiterate. And so he took that trunk out into the woods and burned it because he was afraid that he would find the stories and how poorly written they were. And she found the ashes in the woods. And she went back to him and she goes, "What is this? What happened?" And he broke down and he told her that he couldn't read or write, but he had these stories in them. And she goes, "You tell me the stories and I'll write them for you." And she did. And that book, the first book, was Where the Red Fern Grows.
Oh, wow.
So, even though we get burned by fire, to kind of use that metaphor, but by losing something, maybe something really great will come from this. I have learned my first whole book was losing my job as a book publisher's rep. It was my dream job. And I thought my life was over because all I did was travel, talk about books, go to bookstores, talk books. It was a dream job, but I found out something better came from it. I ended up opening my own hair salon bookstore, starting this crazy book club with 6 complete strangers that's now the largest meeting and discussing book club in the world. Marissa, remember that. Wait for it. Something really great is going to come for it if you just persevere. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And we have Claire Fullerton here today, who is just a tremendous one of our authors, and Joy Ross Davis also. These are both our authors. And can I let the cat out of the bag that Claire is involved with your new book, Robert?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, he's got a new book trailer out, and I cannot get that thing to play. I want to share it, but I want to make sure I've got the audio. But Claire,
I don't think you have the trailer. I don't think you have to. I think what you've got is just sort of a little tease.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes out, I want to share it big time because Claire Fullerton is the voice. And Claire has a background in NPR, and she has the first time, I meet all these authors that online. I haven't met Robert in person, but when I meet them in person, I'm always, oh my gosh, the talent involved in these people that come to my events. But she read, and everybody was just mesmerized because some people have a voice, you know what I'm saying? Some people just have that voice that you could just listen to all day. And she ended up on my annual convention interviewing my agent from New York, Marley Rusoff of Marley Rusoff and Associates for an hour and a half. And it was probably one of those times in my life where I forgot time, And so my next question to you is, do you all read aloud your work to yourselves and to each other?
We don't do, we don't actually read. Well, we might sometimes, but typically we read in advance and then we just come together and discuss the work. But, and we can, certainly go around the group to talk a little bit about our own personal process. But for me, I will actually record myself speaking into my little cell phone recorder, just to get a sense of the rhythm, and the lyricism of the work. And if I hear anything that's knocking me out of the story. So I do actually, I talk to myself a lot through the writing process, probably a little insane. But yes, I do record myself. I don't enjoy hearing myself speak, but I do record myself and it's very helpful. Mickey, what about you?
I often, when I'll finish a chapter or something, I'll sit down and read it to my wife. She's also a writer, and she does the same for me. She'll read whatever she was working on that day. So we read to each other. And the good thing about it is you usually see what you messed up on. And it's a little frustrating because the person will be going along reading and go, "Oh, darn," and then start typing the correction that you missed. And so you have to wait till they fix it, and then they keep going. But yeah, I do read aloud to her.
The funniest wife, husband, writer story I ever heard was Cassandra King who is married to Pat Conroy, she told me that she'd write, you know, I can't remember who was upstairs, or one of them wrote upstairs, one of them wrote downstairs. And what they would do is when they get done with their writing, they just go put it on the step. And then that person, and they just, because they worked in separate spaces, and they would go back and forth on their work. I just thought that was lovely. I think that's to have somebody support you in that way. That's got to be incredible. Writing alone is hard, you know. So this is very inspiring to me, hearing you all talk about your relationships, and makes me want to join a writer's critique group. Y'all, this is really amazing. Some of you have been in it for a really long time, and some of you have been in it a short time. Is this a good number to have for your group, you feel? Because it can get too big, you know.
I mean, for me personally, Jeff, I think that probably the most we had was 5 at a time, and we decided that really 4 is the magic number for us. It's manageable. We all have day jobs, so it's that we certainly invest a significant amount of time to be able to read one another's work and to be able to come to the table every 2 weeks with meaningful input for the other. So for us, it's a great size, and I think we all agree.
Good. That's
and none of us is a runaway talker, right? Like we do our reading, we do our feedback, but none of us monopolizes time. We don't have a timer, but you know, we might focus on one person longer than the other depending on what they've got. But I never have that feeling of somebody's hijacked the meeting, which is nice. We all kind of respect the boundaries of time when we're doing the critique.
That's really important, because I'm a talker and I have to rein myself in all the time. There's so many things that I just want to say to you, but I have, you know, you can't learn unless you're listening.
Right.
So
a good rule of thumb. I'd say a good rule of thumb is to allow about 20 to 30 minutes for each member. And that's with each person probably sending no more than about 3,000 words, maybe 5,000 occasionally. But I think 3,000 words is a good sweet spot, unless you have members who have a lot of time to read.
So, Kathy, I have to share this story about Jeff. So okay. Jeff has always amazing ideas. He's always thinking, his mind's always in motion. So we always know we're in trouble when he says, "Hey, I think I've got an idea for a short story." And a year later, he's written a novel.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, I love these seeds that grow into trees, you know. Yeah. That's really great. Well, let's open up the conversation. Joy, Claire, do you want to jump in and ask anything? Because I don't want to monopolize this, but we're talking about, for, you know, this is being recorded and it's going to be shared on my Kathy L. Murphy YouTube channel. And we get lots of hits once it goes up. So for anybody, if you have any questions that will lead to, you know, wonderful insights and epiphanies, shoot away.
I have a question. I just think that this is so engaging. I'm absolutely fascinated. And I'm also intimidated. You all seem incredibly highbrow, erudite. And I'm like, okay, how did you find each other? So that's impressive. And you seem like lovely, humble, sincere people as well. So that being said, I have never been with a writers group, and therefore I'm all the more interested in this conversation. And I'm wondering about the attitude when you all first started about sharing your own work, and how that evolved and changed as time went on. And I don't know why I'm interested in your intimidation factor, but I am. And then summarily, to what degree do you really let it in when one of you says, you know, I really think that? I mean, is there a point where you momentarily are but and get defensive because you're brilliant, and then you start to consider what is that process like?
Jeff, you want to start?
Okay, you asked a lot of questions, so I'm going to answer the last one first. It's the one that I remember. Um, I think that when you have 4 people, it's probably 4 to 6 is ideal. But I think that having 3 other people reading your work is helpful, because if one person questions something, that doesn't concern me as much. Any feedback I get, I always allow myself about a week to let it simmer on the back burner, because sometimes as I think about it and go through my life, I see the truth in it. And if I do, then I know that's something I need to change. And if not, then I know, thank you, but I'm going to keep it as is. If I have 2 or 3 people who all say the same thing, then I definitely know it's something there. But no one ever is going to give you feedback that's a personal attack on you. This is family, except without the personal attacks.
Well, and so to sort of touch base on one of Claire's earlier questions, when we first came together, and I guess it's sort of about establishing trust and being able to let our guard down, and just sharing our work with one another. Jeff and I have met well over a decade ago, and it was it's really interesting. We might not have met had I not decided to take a class at the Margaret Mitchell Museum
Okay.
with a writer named David Fulmer, who's wonderful. He lives here locally. And Jeff is neighbors, or lives in close proximity to David Fulmer. And Jeff was wanting to pull together a writing group. And so I guess I had done somewhat well in that environment in working with David, and he recommended me to Jeff. And so that's how we came to know one another. And I'm a slow writer. Initially, to be good was really important to me, and I was extremely intimidated by the process. I was intimidated by all of these individuals that were, Claire, as you were stating, Marissa is extremely accomplished, as is Mickey, as is Jeff. And what I feel is that I've surrounded myself with smarter people than me, and more talented people than me, and then I've been able to grow and learn as through the years. They really have had made a huge impact on my work and my voice. Jeff will tell stories about those early days when I would come to the group with like 3 sentences.
Oh, it came to one of the first meetings in 2008 with
Oh,
one
no.
sentence you had worked on for a month. And look how far you've come. And it was a
No.
great sentence. I wish I remembered it.
Now he can write 2.
I know I can write too.
Well, one of them's really good.
Absolutely. So I trust these individuals immensely. And typically, when deciding, if more than one of them has a concern and there's a consistent thread with feedback, then, we've all learned we probably need to listen. If we go around the room and one thing knocks out one person, at the end of the day, as a writer, you just have to go back and you just have to decide, okay, what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept. But typically, at any point that they all are in agreement, I know that I need to go back and reconsider the work.
That's
I'm
good.
a-
Oh, they like that remark.
Yeah.
Kathy, can
Yeah.
I just say one thing? I don't have a writers group, but I read aloud to the very beautiful woman standing behind me. I think you can see.
Yeah, we can see.
See, her name is the Cold Girl. And even though I don't have a writers group, she loves everything I write. And she never offers any criticism. And it's just a wonderful experience to be able to read to someone who thinks you're the world's best writer. And so it might work for somebody else, but I don't have a writers group. I do have beta readers. And most of those beta readers I found on Facebook. And so the beta readers that I've chosen are strong enough to tell me, this is terrible. You know, you need to start all over. I don't like this part. I don't like this part, but I do love this part. And so my beta readers are my best friends when it comes to writing, because they'll catch things that I don't catch. And so between Cold Girl and my beta readers, I have a lot of feedback.
Tell them the title of your latest book, Joy.
The Mad Woman of Preacher's Cove.
And so Mickey, Marissa, Jeff, so she has she and I are similar in that we love elements of the supernatural, and we love the Gothic tradition. So she's actually, her novel that she just referenced, The Mad Woman of Preacher's Cove, is on its way to me. It should be here in a day or two. So I'm excited to have an opportunity to read it.
Thank you, Robert.
In my experience of having authors, I've only had 2 authors that ever published a book that was published verbatim, word by word, with no corrections. And the first one was Daniel Glover's, Alabama author, Down from the Dog Star. And he wrote it as he was going through rehab for heroin addiction, and his therapist, counselor, whoever he's working with, asked him to journal his story. And it was the funniest book I've ever read in my life, and also the saddest book I've ever read in my life, Down from the Dog Star. So written totally without one correction, and brilliant. And the other one was John Barrett's Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, published by Vintage. They did not change one word except for a word that a man used that was considered derogatory to Black people, and they took it out. But after the, 40th printing, they put it back in. So, it's interesting, the publishing process. I find it fascinating, and the trust issue is really important to me right now, because I've been betrayed a lot of times. And so it's very heartening for me to hear how much you all trust each other. I can't even imagine losing your manuscript or having your computer stolen, but is there any way we can get the word out, get that computer back to you? I mean, come on.
Believe me, I have. And I did have it saved on a flash drive, but the flash drive was corrupt or broke. When I went to plug it in, there was nothing there. So yeah, but I've looked through, I've been able to gather some pieces and kind of, patch it back together. And I have some definite revision and to do.
I had an author tell me, I'm trying to remember who it was, but they lost a manuscript by accidentally hitting the wrong button. And so they had to start over.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, it was really horrible. And then they found it. And this is the weirdest thing of all. It was almost word for word.
Oh wow.
Almost word for word. So just while it's all fresh in your mind, you know what? It's going to be okay. Just
thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Mandy.
Mandy.
When I was in Nashville, I had 3 great writing groups that I would go to, but then they were huge. And so you really I just went for the camaraderie, and you'd hear, some good stuff sometimes, and you'd hear some bad stuff sometimes. So you'd think, well, that's what I don't want to do. And no, I like that, But I got a call, and 3 other members decided to do what you all have done. That was one of the best things. And the important thing, like Robert said, was you want to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. You do, because that's who, it's like, I felt like I was so privileged to be included, and I was intimidated, but I trusted them. And the whole thing, well, first of all, I liked my writing. I was proud of it. So that helped. And then I trusted them. They were, good. A critique that where people cringe, but it's just, it's not criticism. It's finding the little things that don't fit. Because as a writer in your mind, you see the story, but they can make sure that your ideas go to paper. But what was funny, after about 2 months, we had a get together where we just drank and we didn't talk about writing. Every single person said they were the ones that were intimidated. And it was like, I thought I was the one. I was, so that was interesting.
That is
Well,
interesting.
I mean, what's interesting and what happens over time is that like we can actually be writing something and preparing to send it out to the group. And I already know what Marissa's going to ding me on, what Jeff's going to ding me on, and what Mickey's going to ding me on. So you already have a sense of those things, those areas of focus as a writer, of those elements of storytelling that happens to be very important to them.
And so before you even send it out to them, that version is already better than the version would have been before you started the group. So people, it's like that. If you can find a group like that, I think every writer needs one. I think it's so important. I miss my group back in Nashville.
Well, and when we're working on a project, more than anything, I don't want to disappoint the group. I feel like I have a huge responsibility to tell them a good story, so that they have something of quality to work with. So, I do very much sometimes submit things with angst, but with trust, because I do want to impress them. I want them to love my work.
Well, and don't you feel like it helps too? Like when you have written something that you're really proud of, you're so excited to share it.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's just a good, once you get that momentum, once you find your group and it's just so powerful in so many ways.
Mandy, tell them your books too, so they'll know what your books are.
Yeah.
They're incredible.
My latest collection is Sharp as a Serpent's Tooth, Eva and Other Stories. And it's funny, I just put this out last September, I think, but a lot of these stories, I was writing when I was in that critique group, 5 years ago, and then Walking the Wrong Way Home. Same thing, a lot of these stories, that critique group, had already read them and, smoothed out the corners. And so.
It's getting excellent reviews. The one thing for all of you that didn't know anything about the International Pulpwood Queens Book Club is I have spent the entire, now going in the 21st year, trying to discover authors that are undiscovered. The biggest thing that I find, because I know authors all across the country, is that you might become very well known in that little niche that you're in, but how do you get out into the bigger world? So that's what my mission is, to promote authors, their books, literacy, reading, and storytelling through the arts, because there's nobody really doing that. Publishers today have just streamlined down to so much. Used to, a house would have 15 editors. They've got one, and they've got some little intern running everything right now during COVID that doesn't answer your calls. Publishing has completely changed. When my first book came out, I got the big book tour. I got the $50,000 advance. I, was sent all over the country with an expense account. Those days are over, folks. I'm going to tell you, even my most famous authors are told to hire an editor to edit your book. We don't do that anymore. And, some of them made me swear that I would never tell, but we have to do so much of the work ourselves these days. So it's so great.
And that's why critique groups are so important, because
that's why I wanted to start with your group, because to me, what you're doing is important. And by you working together as a little tribe, you're going to have better luck in getting your book out there if you all work together, because there's so much stuff coming at us all at once on Zoom meetings. I mean, people are zoomed out, but I think ours are full of great content, and I've got some other exciting news coming up I can't talk about today, but we will be starting this Writers Club. We're going to start out, we're going to meet, every month. If it picks up, we're going to start meeting 2 times a month. But Johnny Bernhard, who is one of my authors, Sisters of the Undertow, is on the Texas Institute of Letters. She's just done a TED Talk. She's going to be teaching a writers group next month at the same time. We would love to have you join us, because the more we all learn, I go to every blog for authors, listen to them talk about the process, because I want to be a better writer. And the only way you can be better is to roll up your sleeves, do the work, put in the time, and, discipline yourself too. And the last thing I want to talk to you all about is the accountability of you all meeting together. That's got to be huge. When you have to, it's kind of like when you have to give that book report at school. You want to make sure it's pretty good, because you're going to get up in front of the whole class and read it. So any comments on that?
Well, I could start, and then we can sort of pass it around the group. It's very important. And Mickey and Marissa and Jeff, are extremely committed. It would be very rare that we were unable to make a meeting. And I'm not going to mention any names, but we did have a 5th member, and of course, and he really wanted to be in our group, but he would blow us off sometimes because he had these kickball games he had to go to. He played kickball. So he transitioned out of the group, and then when he left, we just decided that we would keep it to the 4 of us, because it is disheartening, when you're committed and other members don't show up. So being there and being in attendance is very important. Marissa?
That's one of the things that I enjoy the most, is that everybody's accountable. Nobody, it's very rare that we don't meet. Like over the holidays, we took a little bit of a break, but we're always all there. Now, we don't always all have something, and that's usually me lately, just like I said, because I'm kind of stuck. But that's okay. We all do the reading, we all do the commenting. And I've never have a doubt that everybody will have good feedback and be there and have read everything. It's not like I'm a teacher. It's not like I'm going to walk in and they're going to be like, I didn't read for today. They actually have.
Yeah.
Well, one thing is it gives you a deadline. And because I think, it's very easy to, once you get started, to get distracted and not get back to your writing. Even though you love writing, it's still, life gets in the way. So it's nice to have a deadline. Say, well, I got to get this done because the group is going to want to read the next chapter. And you always know that that you trust them to want to make your work the best it can be. That everybody, and then everybody shares that. Do you want everybody else's stuff to be the best it can be? So that helps a lot too.
I think that probably the biggest challenge for writing group members is making time to write. I think that's the comment I hear the most. And one thing that Rob and I started doing, and when Marissa and Mickey joined the group, is that we started meeting in a coffee shop on 9 a.m. on Sundays and writing until lunchtime. And that helped us to produce words and get in the habit and build that writing musculature. But also it allowed us time to get to know one another. And it's as important to get to know your group members as it is to know the writing. So to Mandy's point about getting to know those people, you build the trust by getting to know the person, not just the writing. And you also become a better writer by reading other people's work and critiquing it, because what you see in other people's work, when you return your own work, you begin to see those same things and you begin to improve your own writing.
That's interesting. We got everybody. What do you like to read? When I go to people's homes, I don't look in their medicine cabinet. I look at their bookshelves. If I see the Reader's Digest condensed volumes, I'm going, okay. So what do you like to read, each of you?
Well, I just finished Claire Fullerton's Little T, and it was amazing. And I'm getting ready to read Morning Dove. I've started that, but I love, it's pretty eclectic. I do love Southern fiction, but anything from Michael Cunningham is a favorite writer of mine. I love Ron Rash. I love the classics. I love those Bronte sisters. Very diverse. But I'm a mood reader, so I have to be. I can't just pick up a book and read it. I have to be in a certain mood. So I actually, if I'm feeling like I need something light, then I'm going to go out into the world and search something that's going to be light.
I'm the same way. Okay, who wants to go next?
Yeah, I'm a mood reader. I have to be sort of in the mood, and I like all kinds of books. Right now, I'm reading the biography of Antonio Stradivari,
Oh
who,
my.
of course, yeah, and so it's in 1400s Italy, and I don't read many biographies, but because I lean toward something, I love Southern fiction. This is definitely not Southern fiction. But it is very interesting because the newest work that I have is about a girl who owns a Stradivarius. It has been passed down in their family, and she's the current owner, but she's also a witch. And so I have to get that little paranormal element. She's a white witch, just herbs and potions and things like that. So, combining those two has been a little bit difficult, but it is so much fun. And I think I'm eclectic because I'm surrounded by books, just surrounded everywhere by books. And when I was doing my dissertation for a PhD, I had to choose. I chose 3 books that had influenced my life, and they accepted that. And then on top of that, I wrote a novel and turned that in as my dissertation, and it was accepted. And it is now The Mad Woman of Preacher's Cove. And so initially it was 700 pages.
Oh my gosh.
But now it's about 400. But I've been surrounded by books my whole life. Fortunately, there are a lot of people who are not exposed to books, but I like practically everything that you can read. So that wasn't a good answer, but
It's good.
It's very interesting.
I'm all over the Irish writers of late. I'm a Billy O'Callaghan.
Billy O'Callaghan.
He's from Douglas County, Cork, and the guy makes me weep. And I think that I gravitate towards literary fiction. I'm fascinated in language, how far it can go, how deep it can go, and it matters to me. I also like those writers that tend to verge on existentialism. I want to know what your human experience is. I want to know how deep it goes and how bad it hurts. And I want you to tell the truth, because in so doing, you give me permission to tell the truth as well. And I'll venture to say that had I never read Pat Conroy's The Prince of Tides in the 1980s, it would not have ever occurred to me to write the book Morning Dove. He gave me permission. And it's interesting because, and I live in California, but as a Southerner growing up, it is sacrilege to discuss the family. Absolutely. We don't go there. We're Southern. Keep it light, keep it pleasant. And I love the idea of where writing could go. And summarily with Irish, last thing I'll say here, and I like Ron Rash a lot too. And he does the same rhythms, principles, cadences of what the Irish writers are doing. But when you think of the Irish language, as opposed to English, and I used to live in Ireland, and this is why I can say this, but when the Irish language is spoken, it has more connections than English. It has more adjectives. And for instance, in English, we'd say it's a nice day. In the Irish language, it would be, it's a nice day that's in it. And so all of it is fathoms deep. And so when I read Billy O'Callaghan, and he's over there winning every award known to man right now with his last release, Life Sentences. And I just reviewed it for the New York Journal of Books. And I'm reading it again because I cannot believe where the guy goes with his language. And I keep thinking it's because what he's doing is pulling from the cadences of how Irish is spoken when translated into English. That's what he's doing. And so I'm like, man, I wish I had that as my first nature because it's so beautiful, and it's so widespread in terms of just, the on point, way of writing today, which a lot of people like. But and I think it's an individual thing. But for me, I can't say I like books all over the place. No, I don't. I want you to hit me to the bone marrow, and I want you to keep me there. And literary fiction, who's doing it? Who are the good writers? We know Ron Rash, we know Pat Conroy. Give me the guys that are redefining how writing's done. That's what I gravitate towards.
It's great.
I want to hear Jeff's answer. Do we hear Jeff?
Oh, I used to be a manager in a bookstore, and I started a book club there 15 years ago, and we read everything. And I recommend reading everything. And if there's something that you really resist reading, that's probably the book that you should read.
Okay.
Because you'll probably get something out of the writing or the story that is brand new to you and is going to inspire you or open your eyes in a new way.
What books do you like to read, Jeff? Or what you've read lately?
My favorite novel of all time is by the executive producer Fraser. It's out of print. It's called Blue Heaven by Joe Keenan, and it is, if P.J. Wodehouse had been a gay man who loved writing librettos for musicals in the 80s, that would have been the book he would have written.
Blue
But
Heaven.
I love the Time Traveler's Wife and Sarah Waters and Haruki Murakami are all great.
That's great. Great. Thank you. Okay. Mickey, have you told us some of your books?
Well, I read a little bit of everything, but I guess I mainly gravitate towards mysteries and, just different kind of writers who do that. But I read a little bit of everything. I feel kind of intimidated after listening to Claire because it's like, it's like, well, I kind of read crap. No, I mean, I read a little bit. In fact, one of the books I read recently that I really loved was called De-Evolution, and it was by Max Brooks, and he is Mel Brooks' son. And
Really?
It's about Bigfoot. And it
Oh
was
my God.
great. But Max also wrote one of the best books I've ever read called World War Z, which is about zombies.
Great book. Great book.
He is such a good writer, and he really delves into so many things that have nothing to do with the horror and the cheesiness of the subject matter to something much deeper. And he does it with both books. So he takes this sort of pop culture thing and he uses it to make comments about, and also just to tell a really good detailed story. So I like good technique.
Great.
And also, Kathy, what's your cat's name?
My cat is Figment of Your Imagination. It's Fig. It was given to me. It's a rescue cat. The day after my annual book club convention, this little kitten that's 4 months old came. I have 2 other cats. They're all getting along. But this cat is so loving. But it was a rescue. And I have the woman who does all my mail outs for me rescues animals and she finds homes for them. And she brought me this. I go, I can't take another cat, and she goes, you're not going anywhere. It's COVID. And I'll take care of it if you're gone. So it's very loving, as you can tell. And yours, I saw the head of your little cat. Oh,
this is Alice. She's also very loving. She came to us when she was a kitten. We've had her for 15 years.
Well, listen, we're having a fur baby author pet parade this afternoon. If you want to jump in, I'll send you the link. It's going to be a blast. As we've been doing these Zooms, I just started this channel back up, and doing these Zooms this year and last year because of COVID. All these animals pop in and out as and I said, you know what we ought to do? We ought to just introduce all our animals. Everybody got really excited about that idea. So we decided that Mandy has 3 little dogs. We would do this on Valentine's Day. So it's going to be at 2:00. Email me and I'll send you the Zoom. But animals, you know, I live alone, so they're my only companions, and they're really attached to me, as you can see, as yours are. But I wanted to conclude with, or tell you a little bit about the books that I read, like everything, all genres. Even though Southern Gothic is my favorite, you know, I just dive in. But I got over 600 books last year to me, and I looked at every single one of them. I read over 200 of them, but it's pretty apparent right away who has an original story and who, a lot of times authors write these stories and they think they're being original, but you know, it's just like art, because I'm an artist too. You know, everything is basically taking from something else, you know, nature, other artists and everything, but you have to make it your own. I'm looking for those stories that make it your own. And people go, oh, you think so outside the box. And I said, what box? There's no box. I have been judged all my life by my cover. You know, I have big hair. I'm a Southern hairdresser. In fact, the first time I was on Good Morning America, I announced the book, The Dive from Clawson's Pier by Ann Packer, to a New Jersey book club. And the head queen, Charlie Gibson, and Diane asked her what she thought about my selection. She goes, I don't know. What would a Southern hairdresser know about reading? And I thought, she didn't realize that I've been to 7 universities. You know, I have my degree from the University of Texas now, going for my master's this fall. You know, we as writers are the mirror of our society. We as writers write because it's not something that we do for what's the trend this year? What am I going to write about? We write because it's our way of filling that hole within us, of making us whole. You can't help it. You've got to tell the story. And I look for those stories that give us insight to people that we may not know their story. And that's what I look for. And I want to tell you, Claire Fullerton, you need to read Frank Delaney, who was the BBC talk show host for book clubs for over 30 years. He's an Irish writer. You will fall madly in love with him. He's written so many books. He's one of my authors. I love him. If you guys want to see what I do, go to the Kathy L. Murphy YouTube channel and subscribe. Also, you can go on YouTube and just click in the Beauty in the Book show, because I did 15 online talk shows with Random House interviewing their authors like Yan Martell and Anna Quinlan, Pat Conroy, Fannie Flagg, Helen Simonson, Susan Vreeland, Lisa C. I was all over the country doing those. And I've got something really big I'm working on next, because I'm 64 years old. I know that, especially with this COVID, I've lost so many friends from this horrible pandemic. I'm going for it. I'm going for it. And I want to take everybody with me. If we learn one thing in life, it's that we connect with each other from the power of the stories, the community of readers and writers. And everybody should write their story, whether they get published or not, because it is a library lost to your family and friends. Nobody can write your story but you, from your perspective. And I applaud this group. I'm so impressed. I knew I would be, Robert, because I love you, but I would love to have you back. So let's get these books going. Please send Mandy and I the books to read. And in conclusion, is there any last thoughts you'd like to share with those out there thinking about writing?
Just do it.
Yeah, do it. Button the seat. That's what.
Yeah, I think as a co-editor of a poetry journal, the Chattahoochee Review, I would say if you get a no, it could just mean that it doesn't fit that place. It doesn't fit the publisher. The publisher is woken up on the wrong side of the bed, publisher could read the same thing, you know, like a week later and kind of maybe, or the editor exchange their mind. So it doesn't mean it's not good. It just means maybe it doesn't fit in that place, and keep going.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
want to add?
One thing that Mandy said that kind of concerned me is people being intimidated by the word critique group. I would just like to remind people, you can call your writing group whatever you want. If you want to call it the uppity women's writing adventure club, if that works for you and makes you feel empowered, what you choose is what feels good in your body, and that's what you go with. Don't feel that you're limited in any way. Create something that works for you and your members. That's all.
Great.
Right?
Have you told
Because
them what ours is called, Robert?
Excuse me. Oh, so as Jeff was sharing earlier, we meet, well, we did pre-pandemic every Sunday at 9 o'clock from 9 to noon at the Grant Park Coffee House. And we actually have carved out territory there, so no one ever messes with our table. So we call ourselves the Grant Park Vicious Writing Circle.
Love it. The Grant Park Vicious Writing Circle.
Funny.
That's a great name.
Can I have a parting word for Marissa?
Sure. I mean,
I just saw Gabriel Byrne, the actor out there. He's written a couple of memoirs, but his second one was recently published. And I just saw him 2 nights ago. He said he wrote the entire memoir on his iPad, wrote the end, and lost it. And the whole thing disappeared and couldn't be retrieved. And he went to the Apple store to try to figure it out. And they said, you need the CIA or, you know, whatever. So he lost it. So he ended up writing the whole thing over again. And I just wanted to share that because that's
Thank you.
just the power of perseverance. And he was like, okay, he became one with it. You have to accept it, he said. He just sat down and wrote it again.
Thank you.
It's so nice to meet you, Marissa.
Good
You all
to
are
meet you.
lovely. You
We're
all are
gonna
absolutely
lift
lovely.
you up. Hang in there, girl, because we've all had those moments.
Yeah. So what a pleasure today has been. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Kathy, and
Yeah.
I just want to
Thank
say,
you.
you know, what's so amazing about everyone that's on this call. I've known Mickey and Jeff and Marissa for a little while now, but you know how blessed I am to be able to meet you, Kathy, and Claire Fullerton, who's been amazing. You know, Claire actually is the one who sort of shepherded me into the Pulpwood Queen group. She thought that it would be a great fit for me, and so I'll always be grateful for Claire. And she's just has wonderful advice, and she's been so kind to be able to reach out and share with me all of her resources, and to be able to tell me all the things that she wished that she had known when she was first starting out. And of course, there's lovely Joy Ross Davis, who's been so sweet and kind to me, and Mandy Haynes. So I have such a great group of friends and such a wonderful support group, and I'm so grateful for that.
Well, my former minister once told me, when I couldn't, you know, I was having my annual girlfriend weekend, and you guys, the work I put into these things, you just have no idea. I bring in everybody that it's the party I most want to go to, the authors I most want to hear. And I couldn't get anybody signed up. And she said, well, it could be lots of things. And I said, but why? I worked so hard on this. And she said, the people that show up are the people that are supposed to be there. It doesn't matter if it's 5 or 500. If you always remember that and don't expect anything else, the people that show up are the ones that are supposed to be there. And thank you for showing up today, because my life has been changed from all of your words. The power of your stories. I want to read them. I want to share this with the world. This is my life's passion, and I cannot thank you all enough for taking time out of your writing schedules and work schedules to do this. And Mandy, do you have anything you want to say to anybody?
This makes me want to call my friends back in Nashville and say, let's start Zoom and critique. Critique groups are the best.
This is just really the perfect start off for the International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys New Writers Club. So I thank you. I bow to my future kings and queens. You know, you all are wonderful, and please keep writing, and please consider coming back. because we'd love to have you back again. And Robert, we'll get that book launch going, and I want to hear from you on all your books. If you go to my book club selection page on my website, there's my address, and I'd love to read anything that you've got. And we will continue this story, because it's all about the story, folks. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks,
And we'll
Kathy.
see
Thanks,
everybody
everyone.
at the Fur Baby Pet Parade.
There you go.
Bye, y'all. Thank you. Sue.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Bye.